Thrilled to welcome the author of the new book on his life, Doc, a memoir, the one, the only, Dwight Doc Gooden, to Sports Talk New York. Welcome, Doc.
Hey, how you doing, buddy? Thanks for having me. How's everything going?
It's doing. You know, you're on the air. How could it not be doing, man? It's awesome. Absolutely awesome.
Talking, sports and just life and stuff like that. Everything's great. Life is good these days, and I have to thank my fans and guys like you that really support me and believe in me. Things are going well.
I can attest to the way things are going for Dwight because, like I said, I had an opportunity at Met Fantasy Camp to hang with him, and over the years I've run into Dwight at a couple of places, but you can tell that Dwight's at such a good place in his life right now. You start the book detailing the night before and the morning of the New York Mets ticker tape parade in the Canyon of Heroes. First off, can you tell our listeners a little bit about that night and morning? And secondly, how difficult was it to put that whole episode down in writing for the whole world to see?
Yeah, it was very tough. And one of the things, being in recovery and part of sobriety is I have to clean house. And what I mean by clean house, I have to tell all my darkest secrets because the secrets will keep you sick. And it was very tough. When I was doing the book, it took me about 9 months to do. That was one of the things that really I felt guilty of, the shame, the embarrassment, but it kept me going back out there and self-destructing for his drinking and drugging because I felt bad with that I let the Mets down, I let the fans down, myself and the family, because you don't get to redo that. I don't get the chance to redo that parade. And so what I wanted to do in the book was just tell my story. It was painful. Obviously when I was writing that book and writing about that scene, I actually teared up, but it was good. It was good therapy for myself to get it out, and I felt a lot better doing that, even though it was painful. But it was a situation where, you win the World Series, which should have been the greatest day of my life, my baseball career. You're sharing this with your teammates that you've worked so hard to accomplish. And then 3 hours later, it turned into the worst day of my life where, I'm sitting in the projects with about 10 people, and I may have known 2 of them. And, you're partying all night, you're drinking, you're doing cocaine all night. And my goal was to go there, get some drugs, which was wrong, and go meet my friends at this local bar. Obviously, I never even made it back to the local bar. And the time on the clock was moving so fast where you're thinking, okay, I'll stay here for 30 more minutes. Then you're thinking, okay, I'll do one more line. And the next thing you know, the sun's coming up. And then now you see the parade comes on the TV. And then when you see that, it just sobered me up by watching that, knowing that I was supposed to be there. And then you see people holding signs, "We love you, Doc," and you're not there. And the guilt, the shame, the embarrassment, everything came across me. And I remember leaving those projects and driving back to my apartment, just bawling, out of control with all the negative thoughts going through my head, wondering how I'm going to deal with this situation. It was just a horrible, horrible time for myself. And so I just felt like now having peace within myself and want to help others as well as the therapy for myself to get all those dark moments out and get it on paper was very helpful for myself, even though it was a painful thing to write. But I feel a lot better that I did it and got it out there now where I can move on with my life and become, continue to become a better person.
It's interesting, too, because the book also details how your nicknames over the years have morphed into finally just Doc. But I really want to know where the nickname Pudney comes from, because I really would have loved just once for Tim McCarver to have called you that.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because I don't know how I was able to get that out. I did it. I guess if you come clean with everything, you come clean. Because it's a nickname that obviously it's kind of embarrassing now. I'll be 50 years old next year, and my mom and my relatives back home in Tampa still call me that. But I figure I have fun with it. And yes, I still, my mom, they'll call me at a young age. And I used to ask my mom all the time, where'd that come from? And she'll say, my sister gave it to me. When I ask my sister, she'll say my other sister gave it to me. So nobody really told me where it came from. And I don't think I really want to know where that came from, just the way it sounds. But still to this day, my mom still calls me that. And she don't care who's around. That's just my name for her, and she still does it. So it's a cute name, I guess, if it's just you and your mom sitting in the room. But when others around, at my age, it's kind of embarrassing. But, it's okay. It's all good and fun.
You know that when you play in that Campers versus Pros game, someone's going to pull that one right out.
Oh, definitely. Once I let the cat out of the bag, I'm never going to hit it into that. And, every night and then, a couple of my friends now, they'll holler out at me also. So, but it's kind of funny. But, I kind of put in my mouth on that one.
It's also interesting because I have to tell you, I had one of those parallel universe moments reading your book. The great people at New Harvest Publishing were kind enough to send me the review copy. The second I got it, started reading it immediately. I'm reading a chapter during one of Matt Harvey's start, the one that you were actually in attendance for, and The part that I'm reading is the chapter where you talk about you and your dad watching a Reds game with Jim Maloney on the hill and his commentary to you about Maloney. And it was so eerily close to the commentary that you were giving about Matt Harvey with Kevin Burkhardt. It almost seemed like you were channeling your dad there. What did you learn about the craft of pitching from your dad?
Yeah, you're right. I had a lot of fun doing that, at the game with Kevin Burkhardt doing Matt Harvey start. And with my dad, those moments, even now at my age, my dad, he's been gone since 97. I still reminisce on those days. I miss those days because we used to sit there, he'll have the game on a week on TV. Back then, we only get the games on Saturdays. It wasn't like all the MLB networks now. And we also have a game on the radio. My dad would have his beer and his chips, and I would have my juice and my cookies, and we'll sit there and be watching the games. But my dad, he kind of made a game out of it. He'll start quizzing me on the games. Like, I remember when I was about 10 years old and older, he'll ask me, what would you throw here? And I'll say, well, I'll throw a fastball here. And then he'll say, why? Then we'll watch the pitcher throw. Then he'll say, how many fastballs he threw in a row? Because it's like you're watching the game. Like, I grew up watching the Cincinnati Reds, my favorite team, because they had spring training in Tampa in the 70s where I grew up. But so you're watching your favorite team play, but also you're learning about the game. But my dad made it into like a game where he'll quiz me on it, and if I get it right, I get to go to the store again and get some more snacks, what have you. But the thing I learned mostly about that, spending time with my dad, was not only the knowledge he had on the game, but how the insight he had on the game was teaching me at a young age. And as I would get older, I would use what he taught me to help myself, and even that definitely was a big part of it when I made it to the majors at 19, a young age, when you're playing against guys who's been in the league 5-6 years, in the late 20s and 30s. I wasn't intimidated by it, just by the knowledge my dad had given me, even at a young age.
We're talking to Doc Gooden on 540 WLIE. And, Doc, let me ask you this. I was at the Met game today, actually. They did lose to the Marlins, but it was about the 8th inning, and there's a picture that comes up on the scoreboard of you and Darryl Strawberry, and you guys are pumping up the crowd saying, let's go Mets. What's your relationship now with Darryl Strawberry? I know you touch about this in the book.
Yeah, me and Darryl, it's been a strange relationship, to say the least. 84, 85, our relationship was great. 86, it kind of, we had our differences. And then I would say in 2010 was probably when things really hit the wall and really got bad, when there was a lot of finger pointing, a lot of stuff he was saying to my family and to my ex-wife that wasn't true. So we didn't speak for a while. We had the opportunity to talk recently, and I'm in LA now playing against in this old timers game with the Dodgers met yesterday, and we talked. And honestly, I missed the friendship me and him had, but it was a big space here, and I think a lot of that came from when was letting other people dictate our relationship and saying stuff back to him that I said, and vice versa, instead of us talking about it. But we did get an opportunity to talk, and I think me and him, we'll be all right. But for the most part, it's been like a love-hate relationship. It's almost been like two brothers living in the same house, and you fight with your brothers for a while, then you make up, and then 6 months later you're fighting again, and it happens. But me and him will always be close. We'll always, be supportive of each other and wish the best for each other, and we probably always have our difficulties as well.
It's interesting to note in the book that even as a little kid, you would tell your mom and dad that you're going to make it to the pros and be on TV one day and buy them a house. That became a little clearer when a pitcher from your high school, Vance Lovelace, gets selected in the first round in the Major League Baseball draft by the Cubs. Vance now is a VP of player personnel for the Dodgers. His departure from high school left you and Floyd Yeomans as the high school's two best pitchers. Floyd got kicked off the team. How much confidence did your high school pitching career give you? And when did it really click that, a lot of kids say that, but then there's got to be a point where you realize, wow, I really have a shot at this.
I think you hit it. You hit the nail on the coffin. Obviously, when I was about 12 years old, I totally dominated. I mean, I was hitting home runs every game. I was striking on everybody. They actually did a story on me in the local paper in the Tampa Tribune back then with a guy who's no longer with us, Tom McEwen. But as you mentioned, once I got to high school, my junior year, and seeing like Vance Lovelace, we played Little League together, and playing high school together was very close, and watching him totally dominate. And then, like you mentioned, I was like a relief pitcher. We had Lovelace, Yeomans, and this guy Albert Everett, who was Carl Everett's older brother. A lot of fans may know Carl Everett from playing with the Mets, the White Sox, and the Red Sox. So watching those guys, what they was doing, it gave me confidence, but I didn't really get the chance until Yeomans got kicked off the team, and that put me into the rotation my junior year. So then, as you mentioned, when I saw Lovelace get drafted, first-round pick, with the Cubs in 1981, I mean, at that time, Lovelace was obviously rated higher than me, but I figured I had a shot. and I knew then in my junior year that obviously I got to work harder, and I have a shot. I didn't know how high I was going to draft, but once he got drafted, that gave me more confidence that if I work hard, I can do it. And when he came back home after the season, he came to our practice, and he said, go out there and have fun. He said, I play with some guys right now. You could probably pitch with these guys. And that gave me the royal confidence, and I was able to go out my senior year and have a good year, and then obviously become the Mets' #1 pick that year in '82.
It's so funny how times have changed. We obviously saw the whole draft play out. The Mets' first-round draft pick was already at Citi Field taking BP today, chronicled on SNY for everyone to see. Tell our audience who Tom McEwen is and where and who you spent draft day with your draft year.
Yeah, Tom McEwen is a guy, he passed away now, but he's been at the Tampa Tribune, the local paper down in Tampa, and he kind of followed my career. It's weird, since I was 12 all the way through high school, and I got invited to go to the Tampa Tribune, down there to watch the draft. I was there with some of his fans may know Lance McCullers and Richard Montione. At that time, Richard Montione was rated higher as well as Lance McCullers and myself. So I'm down there with a good friend of mine that I played Little League with in high school with, Eddie Gansey. So my dad let me use the car, so we go down to the Tampa Tribune, and we're watching the draft go by. So obviously, Cubs pick first. They take Sean Dunston. And then I can't remember the other guys that was taken by. I know it was like San Diego and Seattle, another team that go by. And then the Mets had the 5th pick in the first round. And then I see my name go. Mets select Tampa, Florida pitcher, Hillsborough High School, Dwight Gooden. And at that time, I couldn't believe it. So I'm watching it, and then I go to Tom McEwen. Everybody's congratulating me at the Tampa Tribune. I go to Tom McEwen. I said, "You got to call New York guy. That can't be right." Because my high school coach, Billy Reed, had told me, you're probably going between like the 5th and 10th round, somewhere in there, but not as high as that. So to go first round in the Mets, and I don't remember talking to no scout or anybody from the Mets. Well, I probably talked to every other club. And so if that happened, and then he said, "No, that's right. The board's right." I said, "Well, just do me a favor and just call New York for me." And he did it as a favor, which he knew it was right. And he said, "Yeah, you definitely, they got you." And I remember I couldn't even drive home. My friend drove home, and then you had all the news, channels there at the house. It was just not only a great day for myself, but for me, it was like, for my dad, and the work that he put in with me, it was like a celebration for him as well.
You talk about all your life how you wanted to be a baseball player, your relationship with your dad, and you came to New York and you were the king of this town. You had a plethora of success. I'm just wondering, with all the problems that you had over the years, have you ever thought about what it would be like if you did stay clean when you were a major league pitcher?
That's a great question, and I talk about that a lot in my book because I should think about a lot, and that's what kept me, going back out and self-destructing, because it was more like others' expectations, and then it became my expectations, where I should always look back at my career and say, "Man, I should have won 300 games. Man, I should have been in Cooperstown. Only if I would take better care of myself." And I truly believe, had I taken better care of myself, those things would have happened. But I can't beat myself up over that anymore, because it would keep me going back out there and medicating myself. And so I had to kind of change my way of thinking and say, well, as a kid, as you mentioned, that my dream was to play Major League Baseball. I never thought about any awards or winning the World Series or definitely anything about Cooperstown. But along the way, I was fortunate enough to win pretty much every award a pitcher can win. I got 3 World Series rings, got the no-hitter, which turned out to be the last game my dad saw me pitch. So as I talk about it in the book, I have to be happy for the things I did accomplish and not beat myself up over things that didn't happen, even though I think drugs played a major part of stopping those things from happening.
And you mentioned a lot of those successes that happened that are near and dear to Met fans. And so you mentioned your dad as well in the no-hitter. But aside from your dad, you give credit in the book to players and managers along the way that made you the pitcher you were. John Cumberland, Davey Johnson, Darrell, Keith Hernandez, Wally Backman, even opposing players who offered advice like Larry Bowa. If you had to pick one manager or a player who had the most impact on your career, who do you think it would be and why?
I would say, hands down, it would have been John Cumberland. He was my A-ball pitching coach. That year when I was in A-ball, I actually started that year 0-3, and they was ready to send me back down to Little Falls, where I had been my first year in 1982. John Cumberland stood up for me, and he talked to Sam Plazo, our manager in A-ball, and then he talked to management in the front office up in New York and said, "Don't sit him down. I'm going to have him miss one start, and I just want to work with him." So I missed the start, my next start, but he didn't really work with me. We didn't do nothing mechanically. I did my regular throwing, and all we did was talk, what we call skull practice, where we just sat there and we just talked baseball, talked about pitching. And the main thing he told me, he goes, "You have to pitch inside." He said, "You're throwing very hard, but you're not pitching inside." He said, "So here's the deal. If you don't pitch inside, I'm going to let him send you down. He said, so the way he got me to pitch inside, he had me, if a guy hits the ball hard off me, the next guy that came up, I had to throw it, real tight inside and knock the guy down where you throw it up on his chin and he falls back. He said, if a guy hits a home run off you, the next guy wants you to drill him, which, I would tell the young pitchers these days, but by him telling me that made me pitch inside. And as I mentioned, I started 0-3. I ended up that year after missing that start with John Cullen going 19-4. I only lost one game after that, and I had 300 strikeouts that year. Had John Cullen not had that talk, I'm not sure if I became the pitcher that I was when I got to the major leagues.
Now, the chapters about the 86 Mets are priceless, but I think one incident and Davey's reaction tells all you need to know about that team and its manager and why Davey is such a great manager. Can you recount the flight home from Houston, the aftermath, and what Davey said to the team after Frank Cashin left the room? And when you recount it, just remember that we're on radio, so we got to clean it up just a little bit.
Yes, I got you. I tell you what, we came so close in '84 and '85 of getting into the playoffs after the team had been bad for so many years. And so in '86 in spring training, we only had one goal, and that goal was to win the World Series, not to get to the playoff, but to win the World Series. Davey Johnson was great. We had 25-man roster, Davey with 25 different personalities. Davey was great with dealing with those personalities and making sure we had a good chemistry and whatever was going on, and for the most part, stayed inside the clubhouse. I tell you what, so we won that division, and when we won our division, I think we won by like 15 games or something like that with, going into September. So in the playoffs going into Houston, obviously, that was a battle. And unfortunately, those games get lost because of what happened in the World Series with Bill Buckner, unfortunately. But after we won Game 6, actually, let me step back. Game 6 was our Game 7. We wanted no part of Mike Scott for Game 7 because that year he was unhittable. That was his Cy Young year, and he was so far in our hitter's head, worried about was he scuffing the ball and what was he doing. So we knew we had to win Game 6. After we won Game 6 in the flight home, I tell you, that flight home was like, I guess if you could picture when a team wins the World Series and how it's like a mob scene on top of the pitcher's mound where everybody's on each other. Picture that, but take it to the airplane while we're so many feet up in the air, and that's what was going on. And it wasn't just the players, it was the wives, it was some of the sports writers. Everybody just piled up. Obviously, there was a lot of drinking going on, and, it was broken seats. It was just a mess. We basically totally destroyed that plane. Now, the next day, we have a workout at Shea Stadium, and before the workout starts, General Manager Frank Cashin comes in, and he has his bill from the airlines we was on, and he's reading it for all the damage we've done. Now, then he gives the bill to Davey, so when Frank Cashin leaves out, Davey goes, F that, we just want a pennant, you pay for it. And at that point, that just simplifies the closeness that we had with Davey and everybody, and that probably led to Davey firing a couple years later when we was in second place. But, it just was a great, great playoff that got lost. And I think that playoff series against Houston took so much out of us, and not to take away anything from Boston, but that's probably why we lost the first couple of games to Boston, because we was mentally and physically just wore down from the playoffs against Houston.
You're right, that Houston game. And in fact, one particular at-bat may totally get lost, but for some reason, that Danny Heap at bat in the extra inning game against Houston sticks in my mind. It was like a 15 pitch at bat. Now everyone makes a big deal about staying in, but Danny Heap had an amazing pitch hit at bat in that game that kept the game alive. It was an incredible game. You talk about the grip cocaine had on you in your battle with addiction. 3 failed drug tests. You were seriously contemplating retirement when you get a call from Bob Clappish, New York beat reporter here, introducing you to a good friend of ours here at the show, Ray Negron. What effect did Ray have on your life?
Ray was great, and I tell you what, the way things turn out and the way things work, you just have no idea. When I talked to Bob Clappish about it, and then he said, we're just talking, and for some crazy reason, I still was active in my addiction, and I was trying to go to Japan at all places. I tell you how far off and how sick I was in my addiction. And he said Japan, and at the time I was living in St. Petersburg, Florida. Ray Negron was living maybe 5 minutes from me, so he said, I'm going to give you this guy's number. He normally has a connection with Japan, so I can't thank Ray enough, because when I called Ray and I was talking about Japan, he said, let's just come, let's have a meeting. So we met up. He said, I tell you what, later on, even though he told me he had no intentions of getting me to Japan, he said, if you get your life together and do well, we'll see what happens. He said, but you're not in any condition to go to Japan, which was true. So when I met Ray, Then we started talking, and then we had crossed paths before, but we never spent much time together. So I said, okay, cool. So we called this guy, Larry Mail, who used to be the head trainer with the Mets back in the 70s. He had this thing where he was training players at this local college. So what I would do, I would get up in the morning, and Ray would meet me at my house. We'll go to Ecker College. We'll work out. Then we'll go to an NA meeting that was close by. That's where I met this guy, Ron Dock, who's now the drug counselor for the Yankees. He's been there since 1996. We'll have the meeting, and then the three of us will go to this Chinese restaurant at St. Pete, have very good food. We'll eat there, and that became a daily thing. Then I would go home, shower, and then, start my day with the kids from school or what have you. But Ray was a big influence on getting my life back on track because now I have a routine. I have something every day to be accountable for. He got me back to feeling good about myself. He built up my self-esteem. And then when the time came, he said, we've got some teams want to come look at you. And Japan never entered my mind again because I was feeling good about myself, and I knew that I wanted to stay in the States and play. He set up the meeting with George Steinbrenner after the Yankees lost to the Seattle in the playoffs in '95, and we met with George, and we talked only about what I had been doing. Baseball never came up. And then the next meeting was obviously me and George worked out the deal with my dad, and I signed. But probably had it not been for Ray and Bob Clapper stepping in at that time, I'm not sure if I would have made it back to baseball because in the beginning of '95, I remember when I got the letter from Bud Selig saying that I was suspended for the entire year, I went heavily into depression, active into my addiction, and the only thing that got me out of that was Ray was telling me, you got to get on track, and he got me to working out, and then he got me going to my NA meetings, and then he introduced me to Ron Dock, who became my sponsor. And so things started happening, real, quickly in my life, and the positive things started happening while I was feeling good. I was getting back involved with my kids' lives as well, and then next thing you know, I was in shape. Scouts was coming to watch me throw, and I ended up signing with the Yankees.
Doc Gooden joins us at Gelb. Mark Rosenman here with you, 540 AM WLIE. And Doc, let me ask you this. There's so many legendary names on this 86 Mets team. I wasn't alive when you guys won the World Series, but even nowadays...
You got to get that in, don't you, right?
Yeah, well,
that make me
so
feel
many,
old.
Like, even today, I was at the game. Ron Darling has 10,000 people around him trying to get an autograph from Ron Darling. But one player that left us was Gary Carter, the kid. What was your relationship like with him? Because I've met him numerous times. He's a remarkable person.
Gary was a very special friend, and he left me with something that I'll share with you guys that helped carry me on a daily basis. Gary actually was at my first wedding. I mean, Gary was a friend of mine off the field as well as on the field, a great battery mate. And it was no coincidence that I had my best year with him catching. On the field, he was a great leader. He was the missing piece of the puzzle that our young staff needed. All-star catcher, and he led by example. Always smiling, always very nice and humble. When Gary got sick, and he was towards the end, I remember talking to Gary on the phone, was having something at Citi Field, and a mutual friend of ours got him on the phone and we was talking, and he said, Doc, I don't feel well. I don't know how much time I have left, but I'm going to fight this thing to the end. Even if I don't make it, I want people who's going through similar situations to know that I fought to the end. He said, I want you to fight your battle, your disease of alcohol and drugs the same way. You can't give up. You got to do whatever it takes to get better and stay better, where you can not only help yourself and be there for your family, but to help others who may be going through similar situations. That was the last conversation I had with Gary. He ended up passing about 5 or 6 days after that. But that's something I carry with me very close to my heart that he said, because that just was the type of guy he was. He always left something very positive with someone, no matter if he just met you for the first time or you was a long-term friend. Being around him, I mean, you could be having a worst day, and just being around him and the positive things that he say would just cheer you up. And that's something I always carry with me every day, and that's the memory that I have from Gary.
And when you say use your, getting over your addiction to help other people, your rehab was very public. In fact, if you follow Dwight, he was just on the Dr. Drew show, if you're following his Twitter account. How tough was the whole Dr. Drew experience for you, being so public?
I think one of the things was a situation when I got the call to go to Celebrity Rehab and be on Dr. Drew's show was I wasn't sure. I know I needed help at the time. I know I needed to be inside to get better. And I thought, you know what, if I'm really going to do it right this time and be totally committed, because all the times before I would tell part of my story but not the whole truth. And you're only sick as your secret. So I thought, you know what, this would be a way for me to remove my mask. And what I mean by that was to come clean, to admit to the public that I am an addict, and, being a public figure, everything's there, and to tell it in my own words and to share with what was going on inside of me when I was active in my addiction. And so when I talk to my mom and my older kids about going on the show, they say, if it's going to help you and help others, we're all for it. So when I got there, not knowing what to expect, when you're trying to get treatment, you got cameras all around you. But once I got over the cameras being there, I got some very good treatment. I got some good tools to use. When I got back outside, that was very helpful. And I still stay in contact with Dr. Drew as well as Bob Forrest, as much as I can. And that's what kind of led me from that show to doing this book, while I have peace within myself and I'm comfortable in my skin, was basically just telling my story and coming clean. At times, writing down stuff in the book was very, very tough and difficult. But then it turned out that being on the show and doing this book was a good therapy for myself. And the feedback I've been getting so far, what people have been getting out of it, has been very helpful for others. And that's basically been my message with the book for myself and others.
Like I said in the open, I had the great fortune to spend some time with you at Fantasy Camp. In fact, the cover photo of my Facebook is you and I in the dugout at the main field at St. Lucie, and I'm grinning ear from ear. And I'm not the only person that, when you came across, gets that smile. You basically got that from every single camper. In fact, while you and I were in the dugout after we did a little interview for YouTube, some guy came over with a bat with his child and was trying to explain what you meant to him. How much help is that to you, knowing how beloved you are as a Met and your place in Met history with the warts and all, everything that you went through, everything, and I don't want to say unfulfilled promise, because you gave us so many great moments, so it's unfair to say unfulfilled promise, but what you gave Met fans and what they still hold dear and near to their heart, how much does that help you in recovery as well?
It does. Thanks for all the kind words. That means a great deal, and I can't thank you and the fans and everybody's been supportive enough, and the only way I can do that is stay clean and sober and do whatever I can to maintain that. And it's been so many times, as you mentioned, where you guys could turn your back on me, and I was completely understood. But it definitely helps me in my recovery to know that I can be myself. I can share these dark moments with you guys, and it's going to be okay, because this is what I have to do to stay well. And you guys have shown me that my life is more important than a baseball player, and that means the world to me, because I always told my mom, not knowing how I'm going to be accepted, and if I told my story or if I admit that, I am an addict, I do have this disease of alcohol and drugs, I know how I'm going to be accepted, I don't know. But I say, I have to, because the only way I can get better, I can't hold these secrets in anymore. I have to get this burden off me. I have to let it out, and then maybe it keep me well and help others. And so by doing that, I've just been overwhelmed with the support I've been getting. When I go to ballparks, just walk down the street, from all the fans that supported me throughout the years and through the dark times. That means the world to me. And I wish that if I could take each person individually, I would do that, because you're talking about a life here. It's not a sports figure or a player, which was great. And so my focus now, the rest of my life, is to obviously maintain my sobriety but to help others. And if I could just touch a life a day, or just touch a life, and then that life touch another life, then it's been great, because now the support I get, I know it's real. It's real, because obviously, you're playing baseball, if you have a great year, sometimes you get people cheering for you that's cheering the player because they don't know the person. Now letting everybody know the person, and I'm getting the even bigger cheers, mean the world to me, and it's definitely very healthy for my sobriety.
Excellent. Dwight, one thing I do want you to get better is your arm, because this year at Fantasy Camp, I want to be able to get an AB against you, okay?
Definitely. Next year, I'll be there, and I'll be ready, and I'll be there for the full time. You got it. I'll be ready to throw.
Now, I know you're a big Twitter guy, so in closing, we want to give people your Twitter handle, but I know that you have your own digital Harvey K Corner. Have you ever thought what a Dwight Gooden start would be today in the age of Twitter? I mean, every single time you took the mound, you would have been trending nationally.
Oh, it's been unbelievable. I tell you, with the technology now and all the media research is incredible. I have fun with the fans doing the Harvey K Corner, and I would love to see what that would have been like back in the 80s, 84, 85, 86, with a Doc Gooden K Corner. On Twitter would have been fun, because I definitely enjoyed the K Corner they used to have up in left field, during the games. And it was just great. It was just a lot of fun to be at the ballpark at that time.
And your Twitter handle is?
Yeah, my Twitter is at Doc Gooden 16.
All right, Dwight, we're up against the break right now. Doc, a memoir, available in bookstores everywhere. Thank you, Dwight. Again, we get to interview lots of people, but like I said,
no one better than you.
No one better than you. We're grinning ear to ear, and continued good luck with your recovery and continued success with the book.
thank you, guys. Thanks for having me, and I really enjoyed talking with you guys. It means a lot.
Thanks
Excellent.
very
much.
All right. The great Doc Dwight Gooden, Dr. K, great guy. I mean, so happy for him that he's in a healthy place.